All right, Mr. Zeneca. Apologies there, dude. Twitter Spaces. We got all this technology, all this building with Grok, and still have the worst podcasting, show hosting tech in the game. But stoked to have you, bro.
No, happy to be here. And yeah, nothing has changed in like the 4 years I've been in the space. Twitter spaces still suck, but we- necessary evil, I would say.
Dude, absolutely. So listen, before we start this Spaces, I wanted to ask you: is this the last time to get ETH below $2,000?
Well, it might have already missed it. Maybe it'll never drop below 2000 again. Here's hoping, right?
Dude, there you go. And I love it. I saw yesterday, I think you said this is like your 37th time on the tweet, but I love that that's just a metric that you have and, that you're tracking just crossing that boundary.
It'll eventually be right. Eventually, it'll stay above 2000. Just like it has stayed above 500 for so long and probably 1000 for so long. Eventually, it'll stay over 2000.
Absolutely. But really excited to talk to you today, dude. I know you've had a long history in NFTs, and I don't know if you remember this far back, but you were actually a part of my very first NFT group. I was in NFTC. They had that pineapple emoji as their Discord
Yes, I do
server.
remember. That was my first group as well. It was so good back in the day. Like so many great. I just learned so much from that group.
Oh, dude, same here. I mean, that was just like, you know, I think a huge portion of trading that you can take in crypto is information asymmetry. And back then it was just like nothing else. I remember you calling out blit maps early on and just understanding that that was going to morph into a different collection. That ended up being an enormous cook. Thank you for that. But yeah, even just knowing like that there was a Discord group or knowing how to mint from contract or raise gas, like gone are those days of just, everyday alpha coming down the timeline. It was sick.
I miss those days. It was so much fun. Yeah, different opportunities now, but I don't think we'll ever get anything quite like that again.
Yeah. I think I mean, I've thought about it for a long time. I think part of it has to do with emerging asset classes. I don't know if we'll ever see it in terms of like NFTs or the emergence of shitcoins, but you could argue like some of the earlier days of shitcoin when we kind of had the whiff popcat era, there definitely were like a ton of opportunities. So I'm still optimistic we're gonna get that next wave and still have some information asymmetry there. So it might be a
Yeah,
while, but
no,
maybe
I mean
maybe something.
definitely it'll be something else. There's always going to be something else.
Absolutely. But I do want to, talk to you about it because we started NFTs, it sounds like around the same time, at least with NFTC, and that was definitely a different time frame. What do you think of this market currently? I know that's a broad question, but I'm really just interested to know what your take of, all of this has been.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely the weirdest market cycle or market period that I've been in crypto since I've been since 2017. Um, all sorts of reasons, Trump being a big one lately, hitting a new all-time high pre-halvening, and just generally this sense of, I think, fatigue, or a lot of OGs are kind of jaded, and maximally crime season. There's all these weird different things going on that makes it just a weird cycle. I'm still bullish though. I think that the overall landscape for crypto is incredibly bullish with the regulatory changes, the countries and governments and companies and institutions adopting and wanting to buy Bitcoin and use stable coins and just sort of have this greater awareness and use of crypto. So definitely bullish. I think it's certainly tougher for individuals to find an edge and make money trading, flipping, whatever. But there's still tremendous opportunities everywhere, and like it's tougher than it was, but I still think it's a fantastic area to be um, working in. And yeah, it's exciting. Like it's one thing about crypto is never a freaking dull moment.
Yeah, that's for dang sure. And, it's a really interesting place we find ourselves in the market right now because it sort of seems like we're on the cusp of having bottomed. I think there's people where you can kind of see the sentiment, right? We definitely see some AI tokens and some meme coins coming back off the like absolutely bottomed lows. But I really haven't seen a ton of signals either way to say, hey, is this the pop that gets sold and we go right back down, or are we going to get the Bitcoin 100K candle, get everyone frothed up, and then have NFTs come back or whatever else? So I'm not sure if you're kind of in the same sense of underlying bullish but still cautious, or if you think it's like, nah, the signals are on, we're good to go.
No, 100%. I've described it as like I feel like the market is on a knife's edge at the moment. It can go either way, where like you said, it can cool off and drop way back down, or we just get a god candle and we're off to the races. I do think with NFTs specifically that there's sort of a buzz and momentum brewing. You can see it with like the number of punk sales lately, and a few other collections really taking off, and just the general excitement on the timeline seems to be pretty bullish towards NFTs in a way that haven't seen for a little while. So I think that a bullish market or even just a sideways market will probably be good for NFTs in at least the short term. But market falls, obviously NFTs will also go down.
Yeah, it's definitely a conundrum of just, is this nostalgia, or is this just people realizing that this is the game they want to be playing? I think, at least from the traders that I talk to and just interact with in MVHQ, I think everyone agrees that NFTs were more fun, right?
Yes.
Like, there's just that mint feeling, the post reveal, having a collection pump, sweeping floors, like the traits, the art involved. It's so much more fun. And it's interesting because crypto, it really is like always evolving, and there's not too many other asset classes that you can just be on the absolute forefront of and just like speculate as they're evolving in real time. So it's interesting in terms of like a traditional stock market, you might see rotations into the AI space, and then genomics, and then telecom, and it's every couple years you hear, oh, it's cyclical. So it's interesting to think with NFTs, like it could totally be cyclical, where people are just like, hey, we've had our fun with shitcoins, we got too extracted, let's go back to JPEGs, where at least it's a little bit more clear what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, 100%. And even if you look at things like Pokemon cards or watches or comics, like other collectibles, it's also cyclical. Like, they have like bull and bearish markets. There's periods of time where no one really cares about collecting, rare comics or Pokemon cards, and then lately it's like the opposite, and attention and capital flows back into those markets. So it's or even just like the art market, like so much of NFTs, the NFT space is built on art, and you look back over history, and art has also gone through similar things where there's times when art is valued highly, sometimes when it's not. A lot of the time some of the most expensive or valuable pieces just take years and decades to be valued, sometimes centuries, significantly highly. So I think that as time goes on, NFTs will evolve and are evolving from this like little, very much like a micro bubble in 2021 that blew insanely high and had all this mania around like PFPs and just madness, into very much an established asset class with like within like intra class bull and bear markets. So like could be that NFT art has its moment while the rest of the NFT space is not really doing anything, or NFT gaming is really taking off because there's a big blowout game that's getting a lot of attention. Um, so yeah, I'm very much still bullish on NFTs. Like that has not changed at all.
I love that. Yeah. Do you mind telling me some of the stuff you're interested in? I definitely think, notably, as you pointed out, that this week we've gotten some crazy CryptoPunk sales, a lot of stuff above the floor. I forget the exact phrase that you used, and it was like, if you're in
Fans don't
a
buy rares.
bear. Yes, bears don't buy rares.
Yeah.
And I completely agree, because back during the heyday of NFTs, that was always a good sign for me to start sweeping a collection or taking note. Like, if you saw major sales like 10, 15 times above the
Hmm.
floor for those rares, well, hey, the whole collection's going to go with it. So definitely some notable CryptoPunk sales. I think we got the zombie yesterday or 2 days ago for like 800K, and
Hmm.
just a ton of the floor being swept. So CryptoPunks, it's a really obvious play right there. Are there any other collections that you think have the pedigree, or just the community behind it, where they can still bounce back even after all this time?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, this was the I wrote a newsletter on this very topic this week, and I referenced two other things aside from CryptoPunks that sort of um, signaled this maybe this beginning. One was Good Vibes Club. They minted out, and then the floor multiplied, but you had a bunch of sales well above floor. People were getting rares, collecting traits, sharing them on the timeline. There was just positive energy around that. And then the Masks of Lucci by Sam Spratt was just another collection that really, captivated the timeline and got a lot of attention, and people made a bunch of money on as well because the floor went up. So those are really appealing things. And then in terms of like what I am looking at, because I agree, I think that there's opportunity out there. There's upcoming mints. I think Final Bossu is an interesting one over on Abstract. Very bullish on that. But also looking at like some of the older collections, Parallel Avatars being one of them. The like PFP-ish project by the Parallel team. So they're doing this Wayfinder AI project. They're creating an AI slash an AI agent video game, and I just think that there's so much momentum and I guess, narrative around AI and gaming at the moment that they could really take off. I think Max Payne and Friends, the X Copy collection, like X Copy is just is timeless, and it's hard to imagine too many X Copy pieces being a bad investment over a long enough time frame. Max Payne and Friends is just his largest collection, lowest floor. He might introduce new burn mechanics. He's done a bunch of those in the past, so I think that's something good to look at. And the last one I'll say is Terraforms by Math Castle, which is just this. It's impossible for me to try and describe it in 10 seconds on a space, but it's just a fascinating on-chain art land type project on Ethereum that I've been a massive fan of since 21 when it minted, or 22, whenever it was.
Oh, dude, you're making me nostalgic for art blocks here.
Oh yeah, I mean that's another one. Squiggles, meridians, so much of like obviously not everything on art blocks is going to go up again, like we've seen in the past because there's just way too many collections. But some of the I guess the most valued, I guess, collections, or like I don't want to say blue chip, but just the better collections that have performed well in the past are, I think, going to perform very well over a multi-year time horizon from here.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the market just needs to get a little bit more comfortable with pricing because I mean, if you think about like the traditional art world, there's millions and millions of artists out there and even more paintings that exist and obviously not all of them are worth it. And I think that's just what we saw with the NFT space as time went by. Like I'm sure you remember the release calendar days of NFTs where it was like, "Hey, this is the big mint for this week." And there's the only one or two
Hmm.
NFTs coming out this week. And if you cop it, you make money, and it's like the whole idea of inflationary supply, which we've seen with the U.S. dollar for starters, shade thrown, whatever. But like sports cards, trading cards, the more they print, you're just kind of inflating everything, so it's hard to sustain. I think people always criticize art blocks for that because they continue to just make so many collections. But again, like those collections still have merit on their own. And it's the same thing with NFTs. It's like, yeah, we got to a point where there was 100 new projects every day. Of course, not everything was going to pump. It just wasn't feasible.
Yeah, 100%. I like the analogy towards just the traditional art world because I make that the same. It's like, we've thought of for so long NFT art as a separate thing, and in some ways it definitely is, but it still falls under the umbrella of all art. And if you look at the history of art, like the starving artist is a meme for a reason, or a trope for a reason, because it is really, really, really tough for artists to make money selling their art. 21 was like an exception where the vast majority, or a huge percentage of people creating NFT art, artists, which was amazing, were able to make significant money. But that was, I think, the exception rather than the rule. And now we're just, you know, reverting back to more of a, a mean and a standard situation where I still think that the overall art market is increasing due to NFTs, but it's still really tough. Vast majority of art will just not have significant value as it always has been.
Yeah, completely agree. And what's been interesting to me is seeing that exact same structure play out with shitcoins. Because you could argue it was the exact same thing where, as the rate of tokens and stuff bonding from pump fund increased, there's obviously a little bit more of an extraction backdrop there, which we can certainly discuss if you'd like. But, the attention and the limelight that shitcoins had when it was brand new and a novel concept, and we had stuff like Pepe go parabolic, we're not just seeing that anymore because there's just so much that it's really hard to maintain attention in this time frame when the market just has a million other things propped up that it has to pay attention to.
Yeah, 1,000%. It's the same reason why I think most people agree that we're not going to get a quote unquote alt season where everything just pumps because there's too much of everything. It'll just be select things that outperform, and I think that's kind of more healthy and natural anyway, rather than being able to throw a dart at a dartboard and have it go up, only for it to inevitably come crashing down a short time later. This is healthier.
100%. And a question I love to ask guests on the show is, with so much stuff going on in crypto now, with so many projects that have risen, have fallen, still have new projects coming out, where do you, as someone who's seen a couple cycles, has them under their belt, where do you spend most of your time and most of your attention? As you talked about at the start of the episode, there's still opportunities for people in crypto. What are the things that spark your interest the most?
Yeah, it definitely varies. I when I'm like in trading mode, I would say, so when I'm actually like in the trenches or spending say 10 hours plus a day trying to make money in crypto, specifically via trading, it's just following the trends. You just kind of have to. So it's meme coins when they were going crazy. It's meme coins on Solana, then meme coins on Base, and then there was a brief AVAX season. It's NFTs when NFTs are getting the attention. It's uh, there's just you just have to keep the meta shifts every couple of months. We'll probably get a gaming one. There's AI agents. It's sort of keeping your finger on the pulse and just following that. And you just do that by being in so many Discord servers, Telegram chats, following a whole bunch of people on Twitter, and just spending a lot of time and curating your timeline and information feed. And that's kind of what I do. When I'm trying to trade and make money. And it's a lot, takes a lot of time. Doesn't always work. You win some, you lose some. But I think those are the opportunities for sort of, I guess, a trader or someone trying to make money that way. And then there's so many other ways to make opportunity to make money in crypto. So you could, airdrop farm. You could be a content creator. So I'm back to focusing a lot more on writing myself. You can invest in companies from like an equity or early stage perspective, which used to be very much gated towards VCs and certain select size of angel investor. But now with things like Echo and Legion, it really is opening that sort of avenue up for just about everyone. So yeah, I sort of balance between all of the above. It just depends. So like, a few months ago, I was very much trading meme coins. Now I'm very much sitting on my hands and not trading anything, but I'm writing my newsletter and working on a book. So it's just it changes from time to time.
Dude, that's pretty exciting. Definitely want to ask you more about this book because I don't think I've talked to a guest that's written a book before. But just a lighthearted question to segue into the next
Hmm.
topic. What was your favorite meme that you've traded over the last couple of years here? Just in terms of like, for me, I always love when a meme genuinely makes me laugh. Was there ever a token that you're like, this is just so funny?
There is. I can't remember the name of the exact one because I remember specifically it made me laugh lots, and I was like, I have to buy it, and then it basically went to zero. But another one that basically had the same effect was when all the like political memes were coming out. So like there was Bowden, there was Trump, there was Warren, Elizabeth Warren. Those ones but yeah, those were funny. The even the one that came out yesterday, the day before, with Trump, and like that portrait of him that he hates, that was funny. Uh, yeah, I didn't buy that one, but I'm a big believer of when a meme makes you laugh, that's a really good signal that it's at least going to get some attention in the short term. I mean, all these things are fleeting, but yeah, it's been a lot.
Yeah, great shout, dude. The political stuff was definitely very funny, and that portrait of Trump was pretty awesome, though short lived. And Please was hilarious. I mean,
Yeah.
that was just such a funny arc there. Also, just given how like how visible it is now is the funniest part. Like all the politicians are seeing it. So
Oh yeah. Oh, another one recently, EIC, which was everything is computer, which is when Trump had all his Tesla cars outside the White House. He got into one of them, and he's like, "Yeah, this is great. Look at us. There's no buttons. It's just a screen. Everything is computer." And I just like cracked it up, and of course there was a meme coin. Um, I think it's close to zero now, unless it bounced back. But yeah, that was funny as well.
yeah, totally agree. But what a smooth segue to talk about your book. Feel free to talk about as much as you'd like and as much as you don't want to talk about. Feel free to keep that close to the vest as well. But what inspired you to decide to make a book?
Yeah, I've always wanted to write a book. Like even before crypto, I actually just the other day found some old notes and like New Year's resolutions and goals from like 8, 9 years ago, and one of them was write a book, and I had nothing to write about at the time, so obviously it didn't happen then. But I've always been a writer. I've loved writing. I've loved reading. I've loved words and language. So I think I was always going to write a book. And then finally through crypto, I feel like I have something that I can write about and like deliver value via a book. So the book I'm working on is basically a collection of things that I've learned as a crypto trader and investor for the last 7 years, as well as a professional poker player for about 15 years before that. So things like managing risk, managing a bankroll, finding alpha and opportunities, um, a bunch of the theories around investing, all these kind of things is going in the book, and I'm just hoping that it'll be this like a guide for people who are like new to the space, but even people who've been around a while will hopefully get some value out of it to just sort of think about ways to improve their results and either make more money or lose less, which is basically the same thing anyway.
Yeah, 100%. And I saw an interesting thread that you put out a couple days ago in terms of this cycle and having some gains be round tripped. And I don't know if you felt the same way. I thought this was just sort of a more difficult cycle than before. I think a lot of it is the level of competition was higher, but also the abruptness of which it ended was really tricky. But in that theme of just lessons learned, that you're talking about in the book, was there anything specific to this cycle? And I'm talking like it's over. It might not necessarily be, but just kind of this, break that we've had so far of, let's say, October to end of January when things cooled off. Was there any big takeaways from you from that cycle?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in the book specifically about the cycle, but I think like just a bunch of general theories in terms of like making sure to take profit in systems so that you set like exit prices in advance would have certainly helped and did help me take a decent amount of profit, not as much as I would have liked to, of course. I mean, everyone could have done better, but yeah, I think this was it was abrupt, like you said. I don't think it's over, but if it is, it was certainly just the weirdest cycle we've had, and I don't think many people predicted it to work out like this. But again, it all just comes back to the importance of having a plan ahead of time and setting some targets for selling your positions, and taking profits and like de-risking along the way. Because if you were just like 100% all in, didn't take profits, didn't take your initial out of some positions, didn't um, plan for this eventuality, then you basically would have round tripped everything by now, or especially if you're heavy in alts. If you were heavy in Bitcoin, then you're definitely doing fine. But yeah, just like that's another part, like portfolio allocation. How do you decide how much you want to put in Bitcoin or the other majors? How much you want to keep in like your active trading account with memes and NFTs and the higher risk things. Yeah, there's so much to it that it's not easy. Otherwise, everyone would be making lots of money. But it's tough to do all these things right. And I certainly don't do it myself. Like I say at the beginning of the book that um, uh, I'm writing about a whole bunch of like tools that I think people should have in their toolbox. And then some people will use some, others will use others. I definitely don't use them all the time, but it's just about being aware of them and then finding out what works best for you, instead of trying to have to be like 100% picture perfect with everything all the time because no one's like that.
Yeah, no kidding. And, I've always found that with NFTs or crypto, it's always a little bit tougher to stick by the rules. I do think at some point in this episode you talked about fatigue, and I think it's just so real that being on a screen for 10 plus hours a day every day and just seeing so many fast-paced gains be made, fortunes won and lost, like it's really difficult to stick to those devices where in poker at least you could, let's say you had like a perfect calc, you would know your EV, you'd know when to risk up accordingly, but it's really easy to have some heuristics that don't really account for the market, but you think you do in crypto. I don't know if you resonate with that at all.
No, 100%. Yeah, you're right. In poker, it was, I mean, a lot easier to calculate your expected value, like you said, or risk, or just, and especially because you saw the same situations over and over and over again. Like you see the exact same hand with the exact same odds, or almost the exact same odds, and you get to play that situation 10 times, 100 times, thousands of times, millions of times sometimes. Whereas in crypto, it's like it's always changing. Every situation is different. It's very hard to um, accurately define your edge. It's all a lot of like guesswork and gut instinct and ranges. Um, and like the next time around, like the next meme point is going to be just a completely different situation because the market will have changed. And yeah, it's what keeps it interesting and fun and exciting to me. Like after 15 years of poker, I was kind of getting over it and bored with it. Um, crypto, I don't think will have that anytime soon. At least it's such a fascinating space, and you're dealing with the minute or the very specific details of like, did the dev sell, what's the vibe like in the Telegram chat for a meme coin, how's the did they update the deck screener, and what's the Twitter account like that's the most minute detail for a crypto token, all the way up to what's the president of the United States saying, what are nation states doing, what legislation is being passed. So you have like political and legal stuff, and everything in between from it's everything. So it's I don't know. I love crypto, man.
Dude, I feel ya, and it really is a crazy year and timeline that we're in when the president is launching meme coins, and day by day we see legislation come out. I mean, we used to pray for legislation, and we used to have times when collections would get delisted from OpenSea, and it would be a huge deal. I remember Jail Turtles, if you recall that collection, people were pissed.
Oh
It was
yeah,
like, oh, these got delisted. It was
DAO turtles or
crazy.
something, right? And
Yeah.
then they launched another collection where they were behind bars. Yeah, I made money on that collection, but I still had a bunch that I didn't sell. It They went to like, I don't know, 1 ETH, 2 ETH, something really stupid. Like everything back then. Good times.
Such good times, dude. But I'm really curious, what is your take as someone who is a crypto enjoyer? And I mean, it's the most fun space imaginable, but it's so funny from where we started, which is this dream and promised land of decentralization. And now I see it split on CT. I think there's some people who are really stoked to have a lot of attention from government and countries all on crypto, and some people adopting them. But then there's also the current of, well, how decentralized is it if BlackRock is going to have a major ownership of Bitcoin and stuff like that? Do you have any perspective there?
Yeah, definitely. I think. I mean, I very much am a strong believer in the original ethos of crypto. Decentralization, anti-authoritarian, censorship resistance, all of this is, super duper important to me. And I think it's the bedrock of the entire crypto space. Um, Hang on, I think connection lost. Can you still hear me?
I still got you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's all super duper important. But if the goal was for crypto to go quote unquote mainstream, if we wanted global adoption, if we wanted, you know, billions of people worldwide to be owning and using and interacting with crypto, um, you're just going to lose some of that. Hopefully, not all of it, and that would be a disaster. But I think that there are like necessary evil trade-offs you just have to make to sort of. I mean, centralized exchanges are a great example. Like the ethos and culture of Bitcoin was, self custody. You own your own assets, but that was difficult to do. It was, hard to onboard people. A lot of people lost seed phrases, et cetera, et cetera. So centralized exchanges popped up as this like conduit between, normies and normal culture and banks and traditional finance and the crypto world. And yes, there are risks by keeping your money on there, but there are also risks self custodying. And so I think that like BlackRock and ETFs and MicroStrategy and government strategic reserves are just like more in that vein where it's just like a bridge between the old world and the new world. And yeah, I don't think it's particularly harmful, the way it's currently going about. Like, you know, uh, the amount of supply and money it would take for someone to or several entities to actually attack the Bitcoin network would be monstrous. So 2% ownership is a lot, of course, but it's not. I don't think it's an existential threat by any means. So yeah, necessary evil. I'm generally a fan of it because it leads to greater adoption, but I understand why some people aren't as thrilled.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I think it's definitely going to be interesting. And I mean, I definitely think the adoption of stable coins is where it could get really exciting, because I think that will legitimize the infrastructure, just sort of the backdrop of larger crypto. And I think in theory, that could create some really interesting pockets of trading for people like us that like to, find the new edge. And obviously it's going to be faster paced, because as we've seen, a lot of these emerging assets don't last very long. But I think as we start seeing Ethereum and Solana and Bitcoin go higher and higher, you're definitely going to start to see that risk curve appetite increase, and we'll be back in the casino, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. And I think stablecoins is the most interesting thing happening in crypto at the moment, or the most significant thing happening. And I'm working on an article about them right now, actually, doesn't go out next week because yeah, it seems like not that many people were paying attention. Just the last 1 or 2 days, I've seen way more stuff on the timeline about it. So it does seem like more and more people are waking up to just how impactful and significant this is. Like the last few months of just bearish chop for Bitcoin and crypto, basically, stablecoin, volumes and adoption just kept going up and to the right. And it's like the perfect use case of crypto. It's just sending money to someone on the other side of the world. It's like infinitely cheaper and faster than traditional methods. So yeah, I think it's huge. And one of the tough things though is like as a trader, it's like it's not easy to invest in. Like there's not too many ways to like make money off of it right now. Like you can find ways to invest in protocols or buy specific stable coins and get exposure that way, but it's like it's not quite the same as other narratives and metas. But I also think that's totally fine and healthy. Like it's nice to have a non-speculative narrative taking the dominant role instead of meme coins or something else that was highly speculative.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And it is interesting because I know the Trump media company announced USD1, and then I think Japan announced their own stablecoin. So for me, there's always been that question of how much of something do we need? And you're spot on, right? Stablecoin's such a good innovation in terms of like the actual adoption of it and a good use case of crypto. And this might be a little bit of a jump to a different topic, but I'm really curious, like 2025, are you tired of there being new chains yet? I personally just get kind of burnt out at some point where it's like, here's the next chain and here's the next transaction speed and it's even faster, but there's going to be giga ETH. It's like, all right, dude, I don't even know at this point. I don't know if we need a new chain. We already have so many chains that do work. Do you ever feel that way with crypto when there's 50 versions of the same thing?
Oh yeah, all the time. Um, I mean, how many chains do we really need? Uh, yeah, we don't need that many. But on the same in the same breath, I don't think that there's anything wrong with lots of chains. Because eventually, uh, in the not too distant future, I think it'll all be abstracted away from the end user. Like there are people working on chain abstraction where you have an app. I mean, there are already apps live where you can buy a token and you just put in the token name or whatever, and it doesn't matter if it's on AVAX or Solana or Base or whatever. It just, you just spend the stable coins or whatever currency you have in your wallet, you buy that token. And I think that is the future where all of these chains, like on the one hand, it's good that people are trying to optimize and make things slightly faster, more efficient, cheaper, safer, secure, all that kind of stuff. Like that, it's good that that is happening. You're right, it's exhausting as like if you're trying to like trade or like follow narratives, like I'm gonna go trade meme coins on this brand new chain that just launched, or NFTs, or to do DeFi on this, Bearer chain or then Monad or this, that, and the other. I think that for a while there'll still be these opportunities for the people that want to put in the work and grind and find them. But in the not too distant future, there'll be, there's just going to continue to be more chains. I'm pretty convinced of that. But it's also that most of us will just have no idea anymore, and it'll all be app focused. It'll be, apps are what's going to. So it's all, success is based on users, and users come for apps. And so it doesn't matter what chains are running things behind the scenes. It's just the apps that will dominate, I think, in the future.
Yeah, oh, completely agree, man. And I'm really curious because I know that you've talked about abstract a lot over the past couple of weeks. How you think that comes into play as a chain with usable apps. And another notable point I think over the past year is probably Blast because it really had a notable concept of native yield, and I think just so many people were really enthralled with the ecosystem. And for whatever reason, the apps just usually don't gain traction. It seems like the only ones that really get the job done are like the Uniswaps, obviously native wallet apps. But I'm just curious in your mind, like, is there any app that you think lends itself really well to crypto?
Hmm. Um, I mean, I do think that the thing that is the apps that lend themselves best to crypto in terms of use cases or things that you can't do without crypto, because that's always a question I ask. Is like, it's not really a crypto app if it could be done better without crypto. But DeFi, like again, it's not sexy, but just like all the DeFi protocols, getting yields, doing swaps and trading and whatever without a centralized entity in the middle, I think is probably one of the most exciting things about crypto. Um, and then there'll be apps like Fantasy Top, which is, speaking of Blast, it is the Blast, the like just the blowout successful app on that chain. I think I saw a tweet yesterday that said that Fantasy Top made more revenue than the entire Blast blockchain in a 24-hour period. Um, which again just goes to show that like the chain doesn't matter that much. Like I don't really know anyone using Blast anymore other than the people using it for Fantasy Top. But people will still use the chain because they want to play the game, they want to use the app. And the same will happen for every chain. And this is partly why there's such a like a bidding war that goes on between all these blockchains and anyone building. Like if you're building an app and you've got like you can prove that you have a ton of interest, a ton of users, then you'll get massive grants from the AVAX Foundation, the SUI Foundation, Solana. I don't know if they give out grants or they just give you all this dev support and help. And every chain wants to encourage people. Base is another example, and encourage builders to build apps on their chain because they understand how important users are and how important it is to have apps that bring people to your chain because again at the end of the day that's all that people care about is apps and making money and yeah.
Oh, oof, I was having a trouble unmuting there, dude. Please, let's put spaces on Web3, have someone make a better version of it. Dude, I love the example of Fantasy Top, and MVHQ has Fantasy Top down on Thursdays. Quick little shameless plug there. But yeah, it's crazy that it stayed so relevant given that none of the other apps, maybe a bit of a hyperbole with none, but I really can't think of any other apps on Blast that have maintained attention. But the fact that so many people are still playing day after day, week after week, is really a great testament to exactly what you're saying. That if you build something good that people want to use, they'll stick around. I also loved your answer there. The best crypto app is one in crypto. That was like outsmarting the Sphinx riddle type beat. So that was cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just true. Yeah, I mean I love fantasy as well. I play every single week. It's just a fun game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just when the most fun in crypto can be had. And like usually when the money is flowing the most is just when people are having a good time. And it definitely seems like I have never seen the timeline sentiment so negative as it was probably in that January, February stretch when it was just like extraction play after extraction play. Like people didn't seem excited to be in crypto anymore, right? We were just kind of marching to like, well, this one might be good for 30 seconds before the rug is pulled. So I definitely love the idea of just genuinely fun experiences for users, and then the cash being the thing that we stick around for. That's definitely in my mind the ideal version of crypto.
And I think we're moving in that direction. There's obviously a lot of bumps along the way, but slowly but surely I do think we're moving in the right direction.
100%. I do want to ask you because you brought up Pokemon cards at some point here, at least as an example of people still being interested in artwork and collectibles. What are your thoughts of the real world asset narrative? It was a really big leader in 2024, at least in Mindshare. There was definitely a lot of talk of BlackRock and their real world asset fund. In terms of practice, haven't seen much beyond Courtyard IO and their crypto Pokemon drops. Do you still think that's going to be a major theme that we see in coming years?
I think so. It's an interesting point. It's kind of like the same as what I was talking about before with centralized exchanges and governments in terms of it's like this bridge between the old world and the new world. And I think that to me what yeah, probably the biggest part about RWAs or certainly one of is just the liquidity it opens up for markets that maybe had less liquidity. And so, you know, uh, Pokemon cards are a decent example. Just that now anyone who owns crypto anywhere in the world can just now buy a Pokemon card that's rare and they can see it all verified on chain. But obviously, in order for that to happen, you have to have like off-chain companies that are like escrowing it or making sure that it all works well behind the scenes. Um, it's not purely on chain, so it's this weird hybrid between off chain and on chain, or the real world and our crypto world. But then there's other things as well. Like people always talk about real estate and bringing real estate on chain. Um, Imagine there's a bazillion legal and regulatory hurdles, but if it's possible, if it's done, that could be a massive unlock. Like imagine like I'm in Australia, right? It's relatively easy for me to invest in real estate in my city. And anywhere in in the country, it's not too difficult, but it's not easy for me to invest in real estate in Japan easily from here, or in New York or Los Angeles or wherever. And if RWAs somehow unlock that ability for people globally, I think it will just generally be a good thing. Um, but it seems like it's a very difficult thing, and probably a lot of governments are like, going to be against it for one reason or another. Probably some good reasons as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think at least in my mind, the biggest concern is like how do you even authenticate the real world version of those physical goods? Because like, let's say you had RFID as just a way of like, cool, here's a chip within the item to improve or prove that it's authentic. What's to prevent someone from ripping that out of the real one, putting it in a fake
Hmm.
one? Like, I think that's the difficulty. But I like your example a lot of real estate because that would be great to have that proved on chain, especially just kind of in a digital age where you have 10 different versions of every story or every angle. It's really difficult to like solidify an exact this is the truth, and people can really change a lot. But I think just in this society that we have where again things can just change so easily, something that's completely immutable, it definitely seems like it would have a lot of value in the right use cases.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, it's still pretty early. Like, as with everything in crypto, it's going to take a long time for it to be the details to be figured out, the kinks to be ironed out, and for it to sort of be adopted and mainstream. And there's a long way to go, but I'm generally bullish on the concept, and I think that it's like tokenizing everything. I think that there's maybe not everything, but I think that there's like, in terms of existing capital markets and investment markets, and collectible markets and art markets, I think it makes sense to tokenize those at least.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I also think it's just, I know we even had the concept with NFTs in terms of fractionalizing NFTs. It makes a lot of sense in theory that like if you're
Mm.
someone who wants exposure to CryptoPunks, but you can't afford a CryptoPunk, it would be great to get in on something like that. So if you really believe in Pokemon cards, but you can't buy a first edition Charizard, why not?
Yeah, definitely.
So have a bit of a lighthearted but genuine question for you. As someone who is in Australia, have you ever felt like it's harder for you to keep track of the market due to a lot of trading being US hour centric?
Um, Only a little bit here, but that's only because we only moved back to Australia last year in July. Before that, we were living in Dubai, and then before that, we were living in Munich in Germany. And so during 21, 22, like that entire mania, I was in Germany, and I felt it there for sure. Like, I would go to sleep at 6 a.m. because 6 a.m. Munich time was, I think, midnight New York time. And so I would just yeah, that was my schedule for months and months and months. I would just sleep at anywhere from 5 to 8 a.m., wake up in the afternoon, and it was just very unhealthy. It was very, um, just, yeah, nocturnal lifestyle. Since getting back to Australia, the time zone isn't the best, but it's also not that bad, I think. Um, Especially, like, basically, if you just wake up relatively early, you can catch most of it. But also, I'm just doing less trading now. Again, focusing more on content, and more of my trading is um, bigger picture stuff, or like longer time frame trades. I'm trying to do less, like, buy a 100K market cap token and sell it at 5 million, or like, the really, really micro cap stuff, and more of the things where like I'll size into a bigger position. Maybe it's a 10, 20, 50, 100 million market cap, and then hold it for days or weeks or even months, and then look to exit. So requires a lot less time, and especially requires a lot less timing of the market. It doesn't matter so much if I'm online at the right time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I would say this being the third or fourth cycle for me, I'm the same way where I really don't even look at a coin below 3 million market cap anymore. Maybe on Virtual's ecosystem or just like something brand new that's emerging if that's where I'm spending all my time for the week. But I mean, there's just too much stuff coming out. There's no way to catch it all. So
Yeah.
definitely agree with you there. But going into content, and I know that we have 10 minutes till the end of this episode, so definitely keep it as brief as we need. But I'm curious, what has been the experience for you, founder of Zen Academy, 333 Club? You've got a huge following, and like I said, I've known who you are for a while, so just crazy to see you close to 400K followers. how has that just changed your life and how you perceive the world as someone that people pay attention to?
Yeah, it's been interesting. It all happened so quickly, and it was very unexpected. So, like, when I started I created my Twitter account in March 2021. I started my newsletter in June, and I there were just very few people creating any sort of content around NFTs. And so that combined with the fact that NFTs were just blowing up and everyone in the world seemed to be talking about them, I just happened to get a whole bunch of followers really, really, really quickly. And there was definitely this like transition period where it was just a lot to get used to. It very much does change your life, I think, in many, many, many ways. One is just like dealing with the fact that, hey, if I tweet something now, lots of people are going to see. Especially with NFTs, you like I could impact markets significantly. So I wanted to be particularly careful. You're going to attract haters and trolls and a lot of negativity as well. No matter who you are, at a certain point of audience size, people will just disagree with you, and some people will strongly disagree and hate you, and that's just part of life as well. These days, I think I've just sort of like settled into it as the new normal, where I honestly most of the time I forget that I have a lot of followers or anything like that. I'm just sort of living my normal day-to-day life here and working on my content. And yeah, it's just I just try not to think too much about it, but definitely it creates like all sorts of opportunities in terms of getting access to invest in projects or being asked to be an advisor for projects or things like that, which I'm very grateful for. Yeah, that's about it.
I appreciate that. And follow up question for you there. I'm always just intrigued and also impressed with big founders such as yourself, people like Tyler does it, where you're able to just constantly get content out and be on top of so many breaking stories. Is there any pressure on yourself that goes into that in terms of just being on top of the news? And then in terms of CT today, where it seems like if you've seen it once, you've seen it 50 times,
Mhm.
are you ever discouraged when you have something that stands out to you, but you've already seen, 10 other accounts report on it?
Yeah, on the first part, I don't really feel any of that pressure because I don't really report on the news so much. Like I will occasionally talk about things that are topical in the news, but I never feel bad if I miss something because, as you say, 10 or 50 other people are going to report on it. Tyler does a fantastic job. I really like his content. And yeah, I know that it takes a lot of work to do what he does and stay on top of it all. It's not easy in a space like crypto that's changing all the time. But for me, I don't really feel the pressure to create content. Sometimes I'll go days, weeks without really doing any of it. It's pretty organic for me where at the moment I'm like in my content creation mindset. So like I just have thoughts all the time. Sometimes I'll make a note to be like, hey, maybe I can make a tweet out of this later, or I'll just take an idea and decide to write on it or expand on it and see if it turns into something that's worth tweeting or not. And just sort of like go with the flow and see what happens. And yeah, it's not that much pressure. Certainly in the past I've felt more pressure, but these days I'm pretty chill about it.
That's awesome, man. I feel like that's a great way to be. How much time would you say per day on average do you spend writing?
It varies a ton. Like I said, some like weeks it'll just be none at all. But lately, like let's say this last week, probably like 2, 3 hours a day. Like I'm really, which to me is a lot. Like I know some people can write crazy amounts, but I struggle with like I have ADHD brain and actually ADHD as well. So I struggle with paying attention for too long to any specific thing. So a couple 2, 3 hours a day, and I feel I can get a lot of writing done in that time.
Dude, super impressive. And I mean, you're preaching to the choir, bro. I am in part of the content team for MVHQ. There's meetings where I just say off the cuff, like, hey, my brain's in ADD mood today. So, like, just be on high alert. We're going to have some fun ideas coming out of this
Yeah.
corner. Absolutely, dude. So definitely want to start wrapping up just to be mindful of your time. But I've really just appreciated the conversation. I was just like a chill dialogue. Is there anything else top of mind that you've been thinking of a lot this week or just the current market, either just general insights in the market or any, wisdom you want to impart to people listening?
Um, Let me think. I think it's just sort of it's just a general philosophy, but like having patience, I think. And I think this last week and really the last month or two has highlighted how important that is because um, often the best trade, I've tweeted this not that long ago, often the best trade is no trade. And I think too often people uh, are looking for the next thing to buy. They're like, I want to find the next meme coin that's gonna, 100x. I want to find the next token. I want to find the next gem. I want to find the next NFT project that's going to take off. And I think that that's generally a dangerous mindset. It can work, but it's dangerous because it almost always leads to people finding and buying too many things. And so I try to invert that and think, all right, instead of looking at tokens and be like, should I buy this? Should I buy this? Think about why shouldn't I buy it? And find all the flaws in every token and every meme coin. And then when you finally come across something where you're like, well, there's actually no reason not to buy it because X, Y, and Z reasons are all irrelevant or it's all going to go up because of these other reasons, then I think is a good reason to buy. So and all that sort of requires just patience and being able to sit on your hands and being able to resist FOMO and being able to watch tokens pump and dump and go by without you getting involved.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I think you hear that from just best traders in every industry, and I'm sure your experience as a poker player really helped. I've never really played poker to that level. I've definitely read some books on it just to learn more about EV. It is crazy the amount of hands that professionals don't play.
Oh yeah,
That's
just
not,
fold.
yeah, I mean, that's not represented in movies or media or anything like that. Like they assume it's just going all in and high stakes and bluffing every hand, but for sure, like you're just I think most great traders are not trading a majority of the time. So that's super sage advice.
Yeah, poker is the first thing you learn if you're trying to get better at poker is just fold more, play less hands.
100%. Well, this has been great, Zeneca. I really do appreciate it, dude. I thought it was really cool. I know you talked about which podcast should I pop in on or which spaces, and you just wanting to get in and have some conversations. And I was shocked just how readily accessible you were, even given just the amount of people you have following you. So I really appreciate just taking your time being here today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
No, the pleasure's been all mine. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it was a really great conversation. I enjoyed it and appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. Likewise. I hope you do well in the rest of your circuit. I hope you have fun writing the book. Enjoy the time off from trading, bro. We'll catch you later.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care, Zeneca. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Appreciate it.